Be in the know with unlimited access to IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. Our in-depth coverage of all things business means you'll always be completely in the know. Subscribe for just $1 a week. Get started now at ibj.com/trial offer.
And just being able to get kids access to bikes, especially kind of in this urban neighborhood of where we are, the access to bikes for a lot of kids are just not there.
I'm excited to start riding a little bit more on the streets and starting to ride around the neighborhood a lot more.
She's able to take a spin on her bike thanks to a guy who knows a thing or two about riding fast on two wheels. Former elite racing cyclist Tom Hanley. See how he turned personal tragedy into opportunity for young people through his nonprofit 913sports on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC.
Yeah. You guys like riding bikes?
And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Tom Hanley. Tom is the founder and CEO of 913sports, a nonprofit he founded 13 years ago, and one that has stood the test of time through challenges, ups and downs in the economy, and fought through it all and has created quite an organization here in Indianapolis. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me this morning. It's great to see you and have this opportunity.
Yeah, likewise. 13 years. I can remember when you got this thing launched, and over time talking to you on several occasions. Does it seem like it's, sometimes these things you say, gosh, it doesn't seem like 13 years. Other times maybe you say, well, it seems like more like 30 years. What's it feel like to you?
It feels like it was just yesterday. I tell my team all the time that I've got the best job in the world, right? I get to wake up and come into work every day and it doesn't feel like work. Biggest privilege in the world is that more than anything else. And we've been very fortunate to collectively as an organization grow the impact we make on tens of thousands of youth every year here in Central Indiana, whether through our education programs or in the past 5 years or so, our logistics programs.
I want to get right into it and talk about the model, what you created here, because this was your idea, and I think you fueled it with not only vision, but a lot of passion. And it really gets back, as I kind of equate, it gets back to your youth. You love bicycles, right? You love bikes?
Yeah, I was an elite level cyclist in a previous life. It's in fact what brought me to Indianapolis when I was 17 years old. I was a team captain for the track cycling program at Marian College, now Marian University. I never planned on staying in Indianapolis, and joke's on me because 21 years later, here I still am. Right. A lot of us have that same story of Indianapolis sucking us in. So my career ended very suddenly. Back in 2010, I was involved in a private limousine bus crash, and I walked away with 2 broken vertebrae and a brain injury. And I went from a 23-year-old elite-level athlete, expecting to go to law school. I had just finished my undergrad, and law school was next in line for me. And instead, I was told I was lucky to be alive. I shouldn't be alive. I would never race my bike again. And my best friend was killed alongside me that day. And so I put the time as I was grieving and healing and resting and recovering and figuring out what life was going to look like now that my competitive career was behind me, ultimately building the framework for what would become 913sports less than 2 years later.
Well, what pulled you through that, a time like that, a tragedy like that, unimaginable? It had to be obviously very challenging. What were the things that really, really propelled you to get through it and to create 913 and grow it over these years?
It was fascinating. In those darkest minutes, moments, hours, days, and weeks after that crash in June of 2010, I really got to see Indianapolis at its best. I had strangers reaching out to me. I had the main nurse at the hospital that day, as somebody who I still call a friend and talk to regularly now. I really got to see that combination of Hoosier humbleness and Midwest hospitality, and it highlighted what a special city Indianapolis is. I'm from the Midwest, born in Michigan, grew up primarily in Columbus, Ohio. I've had a chance and privilege to travel all over the world, but there's something great about Midwest roots. And in those days and weeks and months after, I knew I learned a couple things. One was I didn't want to be an attorney, and two was I wanted to be able to give back into the community in some way. And so at that point, I didn't know if I would ever be clear to even get on a bike again by my neurologist, my doctors, right? But I knew I wanted to be able to connect with kids. I knew I wanted to be able to give them the same opportunity to experience the freedom that is the bicycle, the passion that can be two wheels that I grew up with, and not necessarily tackling it from the competitive standpoint like I had done, but just using it as a way to connect with kids. And what we learned pretty early on, and what I really was inspired by was it's so much more than just the bicycle, right? We use the bicycle as an education tool at its core. So while it's great, we can talk about health and fitness all day long, getting kids moving and active, more important than ever before. The bicycle is a way to be able to explore your community, escape your community. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your socioeconomic status. It doesn't care if you have access to transportation. It is this one thing you can do from when you're 3 and 4 years old until the day you pass away. And you can't necessarily do that with basketball or football, nor is it as versatile. So to be able to connect the dots with the bicycle being this lifelong tool, we call it the ultimate equalizer, really has been this framework where we've been very privileged and fortunate to be able to translate that into an education-based curriculum across a variety of different programs here that serve 45,000 kids in 2025 here in Central Indiana.
Talk about that, Tom, because you've got a number of elements to your programming. But basically, as you launch 913 Sports, the mission, what you envisioned is 913 Sports being all about.
Yeah, so 913 Sports launched with our Kids Riding Bikes program. So we basically take a big bicycle video game into the physical education classes in schools across our community. In 2012, we served 3 schools. Here in 2025, we'll serve about 130 schools, and we could be doing more than double that if we had the financial capacity to be able to service it. So our programs are designed to actually integrate into the physical education classes during the school day. So we work alongside the PE teacher. We bring in modules that typically serve kindergarten through 8th grade. And we'll see on average about 150 students per school per day. And we're in 2, if not 3 schools, just about every day here in Central Indiana. And so that's been an incredible thing to build. And it's all we did for the first 6 years was getting kids engaged with the bicycle for the first time, but doing it with this gamification of exercise. About 10% of the kids we see have never been on a bike before. They come into the PE class and swing their leg over ours. So we have this unique dynamic where we have staff members helping teach kids how to keep their feet on the pedals for the first time. And we have that right next to a student that rode their bike to school. And we've been able to build this in a way where it's equitable, it's inclusive. We are intentional with working with schools and PE teachers to understand what students with various disabilities they may have in their classroom. And we're able to send out a recumbent bicycle or hand bicycle or whatever it may be to make sure we are able to serve every student within that school setting that we're privileged to see. And that's all we did for the first 6 years of the organization, and it allowed us to grow. And then in 2018, we launched our Kids Building Bikes program, which is kind of a different spin on workforce development. And so it is a very different version of engagement with students. Instead of seeing 150 students per school, we typically work with 6 at a school site or 12 here at our facility on the near northwest side at 29th and the Canal. And we're putting tools in the hands of the students with our Building Bikes program. We're actually teaching them how to build a bike from scratch. We spend about 16 hours of curriculum time with them. And then they're graduating with their brand new bicycle, along with a helmet, a lock, and a tool set that they get to take with them. For them, it's the bike's the cherry on top. For us, it's the hook to get them thinking about workforce development. When I look around amazing programs across the state, there are so many opportunities for high school students to be able to think about what they want to be as an adult, about career readiness, workforce development. That's great, but I truly believe that if we wait until a student is in 9th grade or older, it's too late. We've already lost them. And so to be able to put a screwdriver or a wrench in the hand of a 9-year-old and say, you're going to go from this bare bicycle frame to this complete thing that you know how to take care of and you get to graduate with, and it operates as it should, we're capturing kids a lot younger than most other organizations. And we're getting them to think about the fact that whether it's being a mechanic or being an engineer, it all ties back to these basic learning opportunities.
And it's so important, as you know, to get them at a young age and to get them engaged at a young age. Tom, as you look at it, was there a moment when you really kind of sat there and say, "Man, this thing is working. It's making a difference." Are there examples of your programming that has really made a difference in the lives of young people?
For sure. I mean, the light bulb moment was the first day of programs, despite not really knowing what I was doing, right? And I got to see this big smile on all these kids' faces, and I knew we were onto something. And I started to have those casual conversations with students, with PE teachers, and then we began to have the word of mouth effect. That is, I think, a perfect summary of Indianapolis. We piloted this at one school, and suddenly another school knew, and another school knew, and suddenly we had our plates full, right? And we just kept hearing this consistent growth and consistent feedback of, "We want you here, we need you here, this is amazing." The model of going into schools during the school day was not as common in 2012 when I launched this as it is now. And so that bread and butter model to us, going to the kids, breaking down the excuse of the transportation barrier, being able to go to them, integrating into the class during the school day, was hugely successful for us early on, and it worked and it clicked. And that momentum just bred more momentum. And so we launched this in 2012, and so we were coming off the Great Recession. A lot of small nonprofits had gone away. A lot of larger nonprofits had gotten a lot more intentional with their funding and fundraising, and so we were kind of in this unique spot from a business standpoint where we were operating differently. We weren't the traditional nonprofit, traditional charitable entity, and so we had to figure out how to do what we needed to do. And after bootstrapping those early days to get our equipment and kind of take care of the basic housekeeping of setting up the organization, I realized pretty early on that what we had was unique in the fact that schools are pretty sterile marketing environments. And so I was sick of hearing no to every grant application I submitted, that we were too young, too different, too unique, didn't fit the traditional mold. And so I kind of flipped the script on its head. And instead of writing grants to traditional philanthropy, I started using my background as an elite level cyclist, where there's a lot of corporate dollars that help make it happen. Or here in Indianapolis, I like to equate it to the Indy 500, right?
Yeah.
Corporate dollars make the world spin. And so being in schools was a unique opportunity. And I actually started to pitch the concept of corporate brands supporting our education programs in schools. We don't typically charge schools for our programming, but corporate brands want to have that brand alignment of physical education and health and eyeballs on their brand. And somebody said yes, and then another partner said yes, and another partner said yes. And so we went through this unique growth period from 2013 to 2016, where we really weren't focused on the grant development side of it. We were focused on selling corporate marketing angles and opportunities, and that really was the catalyst to allow us to add staff, add equipment. And then in the way the world works, philanthropy started to see and recognize that continued growth and that stability and that diversification of revenue streams for a nonprofit. And we began to garner additional support from the more traditional philanthropy community here in Central Indiana. And that was really then the rocket fuel that accelerated us from 2016 to 2020, and where we're still at today.
Yeah. What has been key in your view, Tom? Because nonprofits come and go. The nonprofit business is a business, and certainly more than ever, that is the case. In your view, is that nimbleness, that ability to change course? What's been the key to your success and longevity?
I think there's a number of things. You're right. I mean, I look around the community. I look around a lot of organizations that were peers of mine that maybe started a few years before 913, maybe started a few years after, but we were all growing together. And the past 5+ years has been a little bit of a blur. So as I began to look around, and I realized a lot of those peer organizations were no longer, right? They had sunsetted, they had closed up shop, and they were no more. And so that really highlights to me just the privilege of still being here 13 years later, getting to feel excited to come in to work every day. For us, it's the nimbleness and it's the team. We are fortunate. We have an incredible board that supports our vision, supports my entrepreneurship focus and the social entrepreneurial aspects that we do on a daily basis at 913. But it's all my team. They're the ones that help deliver the programming. They're the ones that are as passionate as I am about serving youth. And for us to be a team of 20 across both of our divisions, it allows us to move quickly. It allows us to make adjustments and allows for that real world instantaneous feedback loop where whether we're talking education programs and STEM based and experiential based curriculum like we're so often doing here, or we're talking about helping get food to our neighbors through our 913 logistics division, that ability to roll up our sleeves, move quickly, and build it along the way has been a key part of our survival over the past 13 years, especially the last 5.5.
Yeah. Any successful company, for profit or nonprofit, faces challenges. And certainly the pandemic for all businesses was a challenge. How did the pandemic affect your business? I would think it would have had just an incredible impact on it.
It was the most fascinating and hardest time of our lives, just like any other entrepreneur that you talk with about the time frame of March, April of 2020, right? But we were in a unique spot. I actually sent my staff home on Friday, March 20th of 2020, watched them walk out the door, and figured the reality was I would never see them come back through. Schools were closed. We didn't know how long they would be closed. We didn't know if when they reopened, they would allow us back in. All of these unknown variables. And we had been a quickly growing organization. So we just moved into our home here at 29th and the Canal about 15 months before. We had been in this big growth phase, and that meant we didn't have a ton of runway in terms of being able to survive the unknown. And so spent a weekend feeling very sorry for myself. And, one thing being a social entrepreneur is you understand risk calculation, right? It's one thing if you take a risk and something fails and you lose control of what you're passionate about because of that risk, but you did the calculation time. This was the first time that I was facing something that was totally out of my control that may take away the passion of 913 and my vision of what I'd spent the previous 8 years building. And so I sent an email to 6 people in the city of Indianapolis that Monday after. Working from home, working remote, told my staff to enjoy an extended spring break, and realistically was already preparing to wind down the organization come that April as a result of these uncertainties. But the amazing thing about Indianapolis is how interconnected it is. And so I sent an email to 6 people and I said, hey, I don't know how we can help, but I've got 10 staff, 4 vans, a forklift, and 10,000 square feet of warehouse space. Let me know. And within 2 hours, we were on the phone with various partners across the community, being asked to help build 2 food-related programs here in Central Indiana as emergency pandemic response. One was a home food delivery program focused on getting food directly to clients that were COVID positive, elderly, immunocompromised, or lost access to their transportation to get to their normal food pantry. And the other was helping build a large-scale bulk food support program to help get food to the locations that had become overnight drive-through food pantries, right? Churches, parks, community centers. And I said, sure, we'll figure it out. Again, like all good social entrepreneurs, it was an opportunity to build some runway and potentially keep my staff employed. And so I said yes. And within 2 days, 48 hours, we were picking up our first pallets of food from Gleaners and Midwest Food Bank. And 5.5 years later, I like to say we did too good of a job because nobody will let us stop, which is the best feedback you can have in terms of the business model, right? And so we stand here at the end of 2025 with our logistics division, which continues to grow. We are seeing double-digit revenue growth year over year, and we have about 40 different clients we are helping move food for across the city. Many of those same models, so still getting food from centralized distribution locations to where it needs to go, or running home delivery programs for a number of clients. And it's something I never imagined doing, being in the food insecurity space, but it's been a blessing. And we have been able to build that model, build that staff, build that base, and leverage it with new opportunities. And ultimately, any net revenue, any net profit that comes out of 913 Logistics, we reinvest right back into our education programs. And it's helped build our sustainability and our long-term business map for the overall organization. And so it's great to be in a spot where we're literally able to help feed neighbors. And then that same work helps feed our education programs and helps put us in front of more kids.
Yeah. What have you learned about the food insecurity issue in Indianapolis? You hear a fair amount about it, but I don't know that people understand how substantial that issue is.
I feel a little bit like the secret shopper, right? I didn't ask to be in the space, and yet here we are. And so it's been incredible to see the approach to it and the real desire across the community to help solve what is one of our community's biggest issues, which is food insecurity. What I've learned is that we have an amazing group of partners across the city, from Indie Hunger Network to Gleaners to Midwest to Second Helpings to the city of Indianapolis as a governmental entity. And there are more than 210 food pantries in Marion County alone. And so there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to this. What we've learned, and really where our business model continues to grow, is that last mile piece of the puzzle. There are really good food resource hubs. And again, Gleaners, Midwest Food Bank, Second Helpings do an incredible job getting food. And there are hundreds of community organizations that want to get that food out. Oftentimes where the pain point is the transportation from one location to that final destination. So what we've really done a great job on is building that last mile, that last 250-foot white glove delivery, being able to get food in the doors to these food pantries, being able to use our box trucks and our Sprinter vans to be able to transport food safely and effectively and efficiently, and allow these food pantries to focus on what they do best, which is working with their neighbors, and allow these food resource hubs to be able to do what they do best, which is sourcing the food. That's a model we are being very intentional with continuing to build as it complements the system, and we're able to build some significant efficiencies within that that ultimately creates a better end product for all of our neighbors here in the city.
Yeah, and as you look at growth at 913, that feeds right into the 913 logistics hub, right?
It does. So we've been very intentional with the redevelopment of about a 3-acre property we have here on the near northwest side called 29th and the Canal. I'll save the history for another day for you, Gary, but it dates back 130 years, and it was a pretty neglected and forgotten piece of property by the time we discovered it. We moved in here in 2018 and spent the next few years cleaning it up. We were leasing it originally, and we began to take over more space as it became available and continue to redevelop the property. Ultimately, we purchased it in October 2023, and we have made significant capital investment into it since. And one of the things we have known for the past few years is we needed a food hub, a logistics hub, to be able to help play that middleman role for a lot of the food work. Thinking about things like cold and refrigerated storage, freezer storage, easier loading and unloading for our trucks, and really just having another piece of the supply chain backbone in place that serves the food insecure community. So earlier this year, we began to build out the 913 Logistics Hub, which is about an 11,000 square foot section of our building that'll be fully dedicated to logistics. It'll allow us to have cold and freezer space, about 2,500 square feet for the first time ever at our facility. That'll improve our efficiencies across the board. And it will also allow us to have more square footage for 913sports staff, because over these past few years, everything's been somewhat commingled. And we have the fortunate problem of really being at capacity of what we can currently do with our fleet of vehicles and our staff in our current office space. So the logistics hub will help fix that, and it's really a minimum viable product, if you will, for a larger scale food hub that we are working alongside a number of other entities to be able to develop on this property in the future years. So while the bike is still the passion of what we do, we know that the food piece of the puzzle and the Venn diagram between families we serve through our education programs and families that benefit from our logistics programs often overlap. And for us, being able to continue that model of efficiency is a big piece of our roadmap here for the next couple of years.
Much more ahead with Tom Hanley, the founder and CEO at 913sports here in Indianapolis. Talk a little bit about Tom's Midwest roots and what's next for 913. That is when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America builds and maintains roads, bridges, and other essential infrastructure that make us the crossroads of America. So thanks to LIUNA members' work, Hoosiers have a better quality of life, like access to utilities, easier routes to jobs, schools, or medical care, and deliveries keep moving. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Tom Hanley. Tom is the founder and the CEO of 913sports, a nonprofit he founded here based in Indianapolis using cycling to promote health, fitness, education for youth. They are also addressing in a big way food insecurity, a real success story here in Indianapolis. And Tom, you mentioned in the first part of the podcast, you grew up primarily in Columbus, Ohio. Talk a little bit about your younger days in growing up in Columbus.
Yeah, so we moved to Columbus when I was in fourth grade. Before that, I was born in just outside Detroit, Rochester Hills, and then we lived in Cleveland for a few years. My mom exited a company she had started and sold. So, I grew up in this very unique household. My father's a CPA by trade and was in the investment banking world for many, many years before retiring. And my mom was an entrepreneur who built a company and sold it and retired. So I kind of had this very unique dinner table, right? Big dream entrepreneurial mother and very black and white CPA father. And what I didn't know was that would be a privilege and a great life lesson in education as I started 913. All right. Columbus was great. By the time we moved there, I just started competing from a cycling standpoint. So 9 years old, fourth grade. At that point, there was no real juniors racing scene in Ohio. So I was competing against guys that were 20, 30, 40 years old. It was really before the Lance Armstrong effect on the cycling community. And one thing led to another and led to another. And was focused on road and mountain bike cycling for a long time. And then I met a gentleman from Marion, Indiana, when I was in eighth grade. When I was out in California for a trip, and he was a world-class velodrome track cyclist and said, "You've got to come over to the velodrome in Indianapolis to check it out." And from there, I fell in love with the velodrome. I fell in love with the track. The velodrome here was the closest one to Columbus. So I spent a lot of time in Indianapolis in my freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of high school, and it was a very natural fit to be able to come here. And one of the great things about Indianapolis is it's very similar to Columbus in a lot of ways. You get those Midwest roots, you get the university experience, the big city experience. So it was a very natural transition to come here and stay connected to my Midwest hospitality and be able to call this home.
So attended Marion University at probably Marion College at the time.
Marion College at the time, and then finished up at the time IUPUI. So I guess I've got to relearn both of my alum statuses here, right? But that's I think that just shows the continuation of growth here in Indianapolis when we're able to point to IU Indianapolis and say, this is happening, and we're able to point to Marion and say, it's now Marion University. And even here in 2025, I sit on the board of advisors for the liberal arts school at IU Indianapolis. I'm very involved with mentorship opportunities at Marion University. So I've been able to stay connected to both of those universities along the way, and hopefully inspire the next generation of young leaders here in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Well, you were on the national championship, right? Cycling team.
Yes, I was very fortunate between collegiate and U23 elites to have 4 separate national titles to my resume and be able to compete both here and abroad. And, really being a competitive athlete and having a chance to experience the sport at that level gave me a lot of the framework to be an entrepreneur, right? Especially when my career ended, my cycling career ended in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't my decision to stop. I was told I could never race again. And so that same drive, that same passion, that same dedication, that same stubbornness and lack of willing to back down, I think gave me a lot of the same tools to ultimately be successful with 913 and play a small role in the bigger community here across all of the different passions I have.
Yeah, it's some people know. A lot of people may not know the heritage of success at Marion College, Marion University in terms of cycling. That is a dominant program.
They've done an incredible job over, really 30 plus years now. I think their first major title was in the mid 90s. And by the time I came in 2004, that was the standard. Was the expectation was national championships won. And we were very fortunate to have an incredible team of talented individuals that continue to deliver upon my time there. And they've done an incredible job of building that program into a much larger scale than when I was there, have more varieties of cycling than ever before. And the fact they're just a mile down the road from us here, between 29th and Canal and 30th and Cold Spring. We have former Marion cyclists now working at 913 Sports. There's a pretty direct pipeline connection there, and we're able to use their facilities, the velodrome and the BMX track there that Marion controls, for some of our summer programs alongside Indy Park. So, we really focus on that bigger relationship. How can we bring students into our programs, engage them with other programs? And Marion is a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, as you launched 913 Sports, the name of the nonprofit, 913, where did that come from?
I would love to say there was some great story behind it, but selfishly, it's my birthday, and I could tell you that the original vision was a little piece of me on every branding line that went out. Right, at the end of the day, the logo was inspired by a desktop calendar. September 13th. I did not overthink this in any way, shape, or form. I kept it
I
as
love
simple as
it.
possible, and I didn't know what it would turn into, and the tens of thousands of eyeballs on this brand on an annual basis. But I'm still here, and I'm not going anyplace, so I guess it's still fitting.
I love it. I love it. Over these last 13 years, Tom, as you look at lessons learned, and we all learn lots of lessons on the entrepreneurial journey, to be sure. Is there anything that sticks out to you, moments that really shaped you and along the way?
For me, I mean, I can distinctly point to one of the reasons why 913 was able to survive those early days, and that was the fact that in 2013 I joined an organization here called the Speakeasy. It was a co-working
Yeah,
space in
right.
South Broad Ripple. It closed in December of 2024. But that co-working space was my lifeline in a lot of ways. In that same year, I went through the divorce from my first wife. I was trying to start this up. I was, being told that it was probably easier to close it down and go get a real job, right? And the Speakeasy gave me this community of peers. I was one of the only nonprofits operating out of there on a daily basis, but I had an attorney across from me, right, and an accountant next to me, and a creative director for an organization, at the same table. And so you kind of wound up in this world where you had all these different skills and knowledge, and that gave me the framework to have a support system. It gave me the opportunity to be able to lean on somebody who had either gone through the startup process before or who had institutional knowledge of something that I was not qualified, nor could I afford to go get professional commentary on, right? And so 913 would not exist if it hadn't been for the Speakeasy. That was the single best decision that I made at that point. It gave me a support system. It gave me friends that I'm still engaged with here now, 12 plus years later. And, I think the thing for me and what I would love to see for our entire entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Central Indiana is understand that there's still a world in which the small guy needs that opportunity. And I know that model has changed when it comes to co-working spaces, but I will forever appreciate the Speakeasy and mourn its loss because I'm only one of dozens and dozens of stories of organizations that started there and were able to build as a result of the relationships there.
Yeah, well said. Tom, as you look at 913 Sports, looking at 5 to 10 years into the future, you've certainly grown and evolved over the last 13 years. As you look at the next decade, where do you see 913 Sports?
Yeah, so we continue to play more of a role in the education space than ever before. We just launched our experiential learning STEM-based curriculum where we're taking bits and pieces of what we've already built, but we're delivering it now in the primary classroom all across Central Indiana. We believe that the bicycles is a great way to teach math and science standards. It's a great way to help break up the traditional routine of students. And despite the fact that field trips are changing more than ever before, it's a lot harder for schools and teachers to be able to take kids out of the building. That same model that led us to success in 2012 when we launched of going to the students will be the same model we continue to pursue over these next 5 to 10 years. So maybe less kids riding bikes as part of their PE classes, but more kids learning how to do basic arithmetic and math using parts of the bicycle. Our goal and vision with 913 Sports is to be a resource for the incredible work that teachers, educators, and administrators do in schools on a daily basis. And if we're able to help supplement that great work that they're doing with another way to engage with students and do it in a fun and methodical way that creates real learning opportunities, we're doing our job. We continue to hire licensed teachers on our team that candidly got burnt out in the traditional teaching world, but still wanted to work with kids and still wanted to use their passion for education to help serve the community. They're joining our team now. And so we're in this very fortunate spot where our roadmap looks like continuing to build that base of consistency while being laser focused on excelling and evolving our proficiencies. Education, learning language, connecting with kids that may otherwise not have an opportunity to experience something new and different. And the bicycle just happens to be the framework for all of it.
Tom Hanley, the CEO, the founder of 913 Sports. Tom, it's been great to catch up with you. You are a real inspiration to a lot of people in this community. Your passion for what you do, your passion for Indianapolis and Indiana too, are really important. So appreciate the time and good luck going forward.
Thanks for having me, Gary. Take care.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
You know, the economy and the market are in a hairy place these days. It's up a lot, it's down a lot, it's sideways, and it seems on the hour there's breaking news coming out of all areas of the country. How do you get your head around that? How do you not go crazy in the process? I'm Peter Dunn. You may know me as Pete the Planner, IBJ columnist, and my job for years has been to help you understand your financial life better in context with everything else going on. So what am I encouraging you to do? Well, listen to the Pete the Planner Show. Yeah, it's a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, or simply listen at ibjpodcasts.com.
On the go? So are we. Get the IBJ Media app, your all-in-one news source for Indiana business news. Get breaking news alerts, read every story from IBJ, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Lawyer, and listen to your favorite podcasts all in one place. Big news, small screen. Search IBJ Media and download the app today.